Hello, Brain Power TV friends. Welcome to another episode of Brain Power TV with Dr. Echo, where we talk about how to improve the health of our brain with parents and kids so that we can all thrive in every area of our lives. So I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Dr. Ruth Mary Allan, and she's here all the way from the UK, and she is an amazing brain health professional and researcher, and I'm just going to let her tell you all about her amazing self because I don't think I could do it justice. So welcome, Dr. Ruth.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Echo. It's a real pleasure being here on your show today, and also to serve the people that watch your show and the kids and the parents who just so great to connect with everybody.
Yes.
So I know you said for me to just to introduce myself. So I'm a certified brain health professional through the Allan clinics. I really help support industry leaders and family leaders in winning back their energy and time, doing what they love by unchaining their pain that they may be holding on to from past trauma and unhelpful experiences, and then equipping them with the tools to unlock their potential and really get the best out of their brain, which is their engine of life. And we take a view through brain health to look at optimizing your whole body health. So it's a very much an integrated view.
Yes,
so
because without your brain, we're nothing.
We are nothing, exactly, because our brain runs everything, doesn't it? So
right. Yes. So wonderful. So tell me, how did you get started in what led you to helping parents and kids with their brain health?
Well, so my journey started very young. So my mum was a nurse.
Okay.
And she was always interested in helping other people. Right. I had some periods of childhood that were quite difficult and traumatic, which I wasn't able to get addressed until I was an adult and really understand what happened. Right. And so through my teenage years, I felt I drew a picture actually as part of my college education, felt really trapped in my mind. So I always wanted to find a way in which I could help other people. And I was really interested in brain health, but I didn't quite understand how interested I was until university. And I did a course at university looking at the communication channels in the brain. Right. And I really wanted to do something as a PhD that related to brain health, but I didn't quite find it. But my dad's mum sadly died of breast cancer, so I found a PhD where I could do medical imaging and spectroscopy, which is looking at the signature of cancers in the human body. So I did imaging and spectroscopy looking at skin cancer using a new technique. Wow. Anyway, fast forward into my career, I diverged away from medicine I was interested in and ended up in oil and gas, which is not where I wanted to be. So I went back into the corporate world and had a really horrible experience in the corporate world, wanted to make a family. So I decided to join as an employee. I wanted to go back into the medical space, worked really hard over the course of the two and a half years I was there. I thought I was on track for promotion. Sadly had a very traumatic miscarriage at the time. Wow. And straight after having a miscarriage was told by the firm that I was working for I was on a performance review, which was completely unexpected because wow. I'd met all the hard targets they'd set for me, and they told me I had no emotional intelligence. So I felt like a complete failure biologically, and then stacked on top of that, I felt a failure emotionally, and I quickly spiraled downwards. And I'm sure anyone who's experienced miscarriage, it's very much a taboo topic and you don't like to talk about it because sometimes you can't because it's such a painful subject. Yes. It's grief almost amplified because you've not only got the grief of losing the hopes and dreams that you had set for yourself, but you've also got the physical trauma and the biological trauma that goes with it, you know, as your hormonal tap gets suddenly turned off. And obviously the wider impact to your other partner and other people that have learned that you're pregnant and then suddenly you're not. So yeah, it was really traumatic, and I ended up in a very deep and dark place and started having suicidal thoughts. And I was really concerned about that because my mum was 6 when she lost her father to suicide. So she was only 6 years old, and that was at a time when suicide was a crime. So I was really conscious, obviously through family history, that I didn't want to end up down that route. So I reached out for coaching, went on a high performance coaching journey, and as part of that journey bumped into Dr. Daniel Amen, who runs the Amen clinics in the States. And that then really joined the dots between what I wanted to do is get back into brain health and support people and getting the best out of themselves, and then also the PhD research that I've done, understanding, you know, medical images and spectroscopy. So it was a match made in heaven, really. So I then optimized my brain health, lost 27 pounds in weight as part of the journey, decided to become the fittest I've ever been, managed to go on a ski touring expedition across the Alps, which was one of our bucket list items. And as we were ski touring across the French Alps, we realized when I got back, it wasn't just my husband and myself that was ski touring. There was a passenger in tow. And 8 months after that expedition, my daughter Lilly was born.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, and I know that, you know, we go through these really dark days, don't we, through our lives. And sometimes it's really hard to pull ourselves out. But I know that year was, although it was probably the hardest year for me ever, was a real pivotal moment. And the fact that I was able to see a really good side to my story, you know, and yes, we have to wait sometimes for things to happen to us that are really magical. But yeah, it was just has been an amazing journey, and to be able now, obviously certified as a brain health professional, actually I shout out to all the mums out there balancing a laptop on your breastfeeding cushion.
That's right.
Learning whilst your child's breastfeeding is what I did. So
right. Yes,
so
we need to clap for that, because
when you're absolutely exhausted, you merge yourself into stuff that's going to keep your brain active. So I certified whilst, you know, as a young mum, as a brain health professional. And obviously, you know, that whole journey, I had no idea what it took to make a baby. You know, I was completely oblivious. I just thought, well, you know, you show up, you do the deed, and it will happen. And that's just not how it goes.
No, not really.
You have to create the right environment, don't you? And I, you know, in being in the corporate world that I was, it was so toxic and so stressful. And I really was not adopting the right brain healthy habits for me to create the right nurturing environment for the baby. And it wasn't until I really thought, you know, I have a PhD, I can read, and started picking up the books about how to build a baby. Baby 101. And what I needed to do to nurture myself so that I was nurturing my child. You know, lo and behold, actually, I was on the verge, as many women I'm sure will testify, that I gave up. I just thought, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to get pregnant. I'm just going to serve my clients and go with that. And lo and behold, straight after telling myself that, I fell pregnant and had a very good pregnancy, not such a good delivery. It was the bush
Wonderful.
tuck and trial of medical intervention with a C-section at the end,
Wow.
emergency C-section. But, you know, the outcome was, you know, a beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful baby. So,
Yes.
yeah, so that's what really got me into brain health is that it was a varied journey, but it was really the pivotal point in being rock bottom.
Wow. Okay. I don't even know where to start. So much.
Start at the beginning, as Winnie the Pooh says. It's a very good place to start.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, it's so amazing how you went from you've been traumatized and I saw the picture on your website. It's so, it's like, wow. It's so clear, like how you had yourself in mazes, in this tall mazes, and it's like you had this confused look on your face. Yeah. And there's so many people walking around feeling like that right now. Yeah. It's just, I'm so glad for you that you were able to go from that place to this amazing place where you are helping not just, well, helping people who work in toxic places like you have, and also helping parents, because you're both, right? You're both a parent and a work leader. So let's start here. So parents that are struggling right now with trauma that they haven't faced, that have happened to them in the past, or even are happening right now, how do you address that with them? What would you say to them?
So I would say, you know, what's really important as a parent is that we put our oxygen mask first before trying to help others. So if you know you've got unaddressed trauma, like you bandage your child up who has a wound, we don't leave a wound open and hope someday it will heal. It's really important to do the intervention as soon as possible. So ask for help. Right. You know, reach out. We do single sessions to help people unchain their pain from past trauma. We use havening and combine it with brain health coaching techniques. So we call it emotional mindset management. So it's really about taking back control of your emotional mindset, which drives you. Ultimately, it's your emotions, your amygdala that drive your behaviors, not your prefrontal cortex, which is your logical thinking part. Right. We're driven by emotions. And if we don't have control of them, then they drive us. Right. So it's really important that you ask for help. The way we do it is we can do single family sessions, depending on the complexity of the trauma. And group sessions, content free, so people can just show up with any trauma. They don't have to talk about it. Sometimes it's too painful. So it's a really good approach to use, where you want to go to talk therapy, and that's what you want to be able to talk it out, but you can't talk it out because it's too traumatic, or it's too embarrassing, or you feel too ashamed. And so it's giving yourself permission to let go of that trauma without having to verbalize it. And this is really key, especially for kids. You know, trauma can happen at birth and pre-birth. Right. And we don't have vocabulary when we're in the womb. We don't have vocabulary when we're born. And we certainly don't have that emotional vocabulary until we're much older as kids. Yes. So it's sometimes really difficult if you're a parent that's been traumatized as a child, where you've got adverse childhood experiences, as I've had, to verbalize what's happened, because the encoding in your mind is the encoding of a child. Right. So it's really hard to unlock it verbally if that encoding does not exist with the vocabulary that we're used to using as adults. Right. So it's, as a parent, if you're stuck, you know, if you feel like you've got a bungee cord attached to you, to your past, and every time you want to move forward in life, it keeps yanking you back, and you feel chained, and you may have these unexpected emotional responses. And we've seen this in the news, haven't we, recently, with Will Will Smith, sadly, you know, he had an adverse reaction, which could be a result of past childhood experiences.
Right.
Whatever the case is, sometimes we do, as a parent or as a, you know, as a loved one, we get triggered by something. Right. And so what you want to do is to break the chains, so your present day experiences, environment doesn't trigger you back to your past. So right. I would say reach out for help, or, you know, reach out to a therapist, reach out to yourself or to me, and get the support that you need, that is right for you, and don't stop until you find the right person, because the first therapist that you come across may not be right for you. It's like finding a partner, isn't it?
That's correct.
You know, not many of us bump into the right person first time lucky, do they? Yes. So think of it as building a relationship. Your therapist, you know, it's a very intimate relationship with a therapist or a coach, because you're about to spew, throw up all of the stuff that you can't talk about normally. So get the support, and the key thing there is you're not failing by asking for help. You're wanting to succeed. Yes. And asking for help is your desire to succeed. So focus on the positive aspect of asking for help. Is it's your journey to success. Yes. Because you know that you need help to get there.
Yes, because asking for help is actually a strength. It's a strength, not a weakness. It means you're actually strong. Exactly. Weak people don't ask for help because they think they know it all, and obviously nobody knows it all. So yeah, and it's like if you're going to walk up a mountain that you've never walked up before, then you can either do it yourself and you know, succumb to the environment if you're not familiar with how to get there, or you get yourself a guide who knows the route, and they'll take you there and show you the way and teach you how to look after yourself en route. So, you know, absolutely. Yeah, and that's something I use in practice with my teenagers. When I'm talking to them about going to counseling, and they're just rolling their eyes at me and saying, no, I'm not crazy, I don't need help. Then I tell them, I go to therapy every week. Do I look crazy? And then they're like, no. I'm like, that's right. So are you ready to go now? And I find that when I tell them that I do, and I tell them it's because I want to be healthy, because I think it's important for us to be able to talk to somebody who can help us find strategies to help us do better. And so, yeah. And when we are able to say, you know, it doesn't mean, it's not a label. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you if you go to therapy. And I think that helps them too. And
better. You know, I think that's really important that kids do. I mean, I think every child ought to be assigned a therapist, to be honest with you, or a coach. Yes. But like just the same as we have coaches in, you know, we were talking about football clubs, weren't we? It is to be assigned a role model that they can go to, that isn't just their parents or their grandparents or whoever. Because what happens if we don't do that, if children need to talk about something that is troubling them and they don't have that confidence to share it with their parents, then their default is to go to their immediate peer group who don't have the experience to help them work through it. And you know, from my childhood experiences, that's what we did. You would go to your peer group and talk about it if you didn't have the right relationship with your parents, or you felt too ashamed or whatever. But you don't get great advice from other kids. Because they only have the knowledge up to the age that they're at. And they might not be savvy to the depth of your trauma that you may have experienced. All the steps that you need to take to get out of it. So I think it's really important that we equip our children by surrounding them with, you know, therapists, or think of your therapist as a coach, because sometimes it's considered a dirty word, isn't it, for some reason. It is think of them as a coach to coach you through life, like your football coach, like your soccer coach, like your, you know, like whatever it is, it's the same. but
Yeah,
a personal growth point of view, not physical growth.
Right. And I just thought of something, when kids go to their peer groups, if their peer groups have been exposed to things like drugs or alcohol to drown their own pain, and that's how kids can get exposed to that as well.
Absolutely. And listen, I was surrounded by drugs when I was in my teens. Pretty much all of my friends were taking, I was in a private school. It doesn't matter what school you go to.
No, it doesn't.
You're going to be exposed to it. And you can, might choose to try it or not try it. But the point is that, you see it, and you need to equip your kids with the strength and the courage to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try ecstasy. I'm not going to try speed. I'm not going to try whatever the latest drug is that they have out there. And obviously now the kids are being exposed to much more recreational drugs perhaps than we may have had historically, because of the vaping that encourages addictive behaviors. And also gaming is another drug that doesn't come in a packet but comes in a games console.
That's right. That is a problem. We'll talk about that too. Yes. Yeah, I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? I had this point I was gonna make about the kids, and I can't remember exactly, but let's talk about the gaming one. How does gaming affect the brain and its capacity to function like it should?
Wow. So gaming, it in itself, it triggers dopamine production, and it's a dopamine hit. You want a dopamine hit every time you turn it on. And the more you play it, the more you need that dopamine hit. And what happens is that dopamine hit is generated and absorbed in your nucleus accumbens, which is your pleasure center of your brain. And then when you keep hitting it, it's like your running shoes. If you keep running on your running shoes all the time like this, you wear them out really quickly.
Right.
Okay. So you want, and you're pounding it.
Right.
So it's a really, you're really wearing out that pleasure center in your brain, which then the kids go, oh goodness, I'm not getting the same pleasure that I was getting from the game, so I need to play it more and more and more and more. And so it goes on until that pleasure center is completely worn out, and that creates that addictive behavior. It's exactly the same with alcohol. It's the same principle. So the key for parents, and I grew up with Atari and BBC when we were kids, when computers were just coming out, and we used to wear out the XY key playing Space Invaders, because we would get so addicted to Space Invaders. So the key for parents now is to limit the amount of gaming time that kids have, so they don't wear their pleasure centers out, and they don't need a continuous hit, because once that happens, from a gaming perspective, what are they going to do next? If they're not getting the satisfaction of gaming, they're going to go to gambling. They're going to go to, they'll need something
to keep going,
to keep getting that dopamine hit. So we have to basically detoxify them from the game. So we have to absolutely limit their consumption if they're showing addictive behaviors, and maybe they might have to completely detox and come off it permanently.
That's right.
So that we're not triggering addictive behavior again. And it's even more complex, isn't it, now with gaming, because you can get addicted to types of gaming, not just the game activity itself. Certain types of gaming people can get addicted to, in the same way as they get addicted to flavors of alcohol or flavors of food, like chocolate.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I tell parents all the time, I mean, decrease, actually don't even give them a electronic during the week. I mean, at school now, they have to use electronics. So give their brain a rest. They need to go around, run around, be kids, learn to fix things themselves, learn to create play themselves, not just be given it from a screen. And maybe on the weekend, 1 or 2 hours a day, and take away those phones. They don't need phones. When you were 6 years old, did you need a phone?
No.
Exactly. I see 6-year-olds with phones. I'm like, why? And like, oh goodness. So parents, I mean, so important. And
the thing with phones, and I you know, I'm not a big fan of phones, and I hate having to go on my phone, but that's just the reality of the business that I'm in.
Right.
But if you've got a 6-year-old child, create your community group like we do. You know, I've got Lily's 3 and she's in nursery. Create your WhatsApp group with the parents so they can connect, but they're not doing it on their phone. You're doing it for them. And you create a social network outside of digital media. And you leverage digital media to do that. But don't get them sucked into digital media where the only way that they can socialize with their friends is on their phone, because that's not super healthy. Kids need to get outside, they need to socialize physically, they need that physical contact. From a nurturing perspective, we all need it. And they need that physical social interaction. And yes, COVID has been absolutely horrific for so many people and in so many ways, but you can leverage the power of community groups online to create better outdoor engagement, which we've done in our local community. So use it in a positive way rather than in an addictive way.
Right. And before I forget, I wanted to just mention about sleep, because sleep is so integral to our brain function. And and the blue light from the phones, or the electronics in the kids' bedrooms, I mean, it stimulates their brain and tells their brain, oh, it's time to stay awake. I mean, that blue light. So I tell parents, turn off the phones, take them out of the rooms, have the kids turn in their phones and electronics to you. There should be no electronics in the room so that they can sleep well and so that they can actually optimize their brain function, so they can actually behave better, because kids don't sleep well, they don't behave well, they can't tell you why, they just show you in their behavior, and then it becomes, oh, the kid doesn't behave, and then they end up in my office with a diagnosis. I love it when they show up with, the kid has ADHD, fix him. I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about what's going on with this.
We have to work back and find out what's the root cause of the problem.
That's right.
And on that, I think it's, kids don't do what you say, they do what you do.
That's right.
So it's really important that you role model it. When I was a kid, we used to have a TV in every room. Every bedroom pretty much had a TV. My dad was an electrical engineer. He loved electricity, so it was everywhere. But we don't have a TV anywhere other than the living room.
Right.
And so it's really, you can set the rules of your house, but you all have to abide by them.
Right.
And it starts with parenting. You as a parent, you need to abide by them. So if you're telling your child, oh, you need to turn your phone off at night, or no phones at the table for dinner, for example, and then there you are glued to your screen.
That's right.
They're not going to listen, are they? Because you're not listening to your own rules.
They will. In fact, they will call you out. They will say,
exactly, they will.
That was the rule. I love it.
And be okay with it and say, thank you for calling me out. Don't say that's so facetious. Say, thank you, you're absolutely right. I'm so wrong. I'm really pleased you did that. Thank you for standing up for our family values.
Yes. And that really helps the kids, because they want to do more of standing up for the family values. And before you know it, it becomes a habit for them. And so then they learn that. And they grow up to be adults who have good family values. So
exactly. My daughter, she's 3, she calls out elbows on the table. No elbows on the table. And it doesn't matter how old you are, she'll call you out if you put
That's right.
So it starts, start early. And if you haven't started, start now.
Start now, yes. Never too late.
It's never too late.
Yes. So you did mention havening. Can you explain what havening is, please?
Oh, yeah. So havening, it's a psychosensory technique, which basically means we use an external activity to help our psychological mindset. Okay. So we use the power of human touch from a havening perspective to generate calming delta waves in our mind. So when we're born, we need human touch to survive. It's an essential inbuilt part of our genetic makeup that in order for us to regulate ourselves emotionally, babies need human touch. We all need human touch. Yes. And this is what we tap into with havening. We're tapping into our inbuilt superpower of human touch to downregulate our mind. Right. And what it does is it brings on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming system that calms us down, that system within our body. And it turns off the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight, flight, response system. And the way it works is havening. We stroke off. There's many ways you can do it. You can stroke your face, you can wash your hands, or you can stroke your shoulders. Is when you do that, as I'm sure many parents are aware, when they give their child a hug, right, and you often stroke them when you hug them, or you stroke their hair or whatever, or you might stroke their forehead like this, right, is it generates these lovely calming delta waves. And these delta waves are generated in deep sleep, which is restorative sleep, which is when our brain cleans itself, does the reshuffling of the memories through the day, and figures out how it wants to reboot itself for the next day. Right. So when we generate these delta waves, they send specific chemicals, these calming chemicals, to the cells in our brain. So if there's any cell in our brain that's been traumatized at the time we're sending these calming chemicals, those calming chemicals will tell that traumatized brain cell, which will have it kind of has what we call an AMPA receptor. So it's a little short circuit plugged onto the surface of the brain cell. So imagine my ring. So it will tell the AMPA receptor, you're no longer needed. It's a safe place. Okay. You're in the place of safety. Go back into the cell and you can get recalled at a later date if it's necessary to go into fight or flight. So it unplugs it and it goes back into the cell. Okay. So what happens then is we no longer have this short circuit on the surface of our cell, and any connections from that short circuit that were encoded as part of that trauma, any emotional outflow that we may have, any cognitive outflow, so that's thoughts that we may have encoded as part of that trauma, any somatosensory, so sensations that we have encoded in our body, such as shaking, tingling, and any autonomic, so heart racing and palpitations and sweating and increased cortisol and all the things that we can typically measure, that gets cut. So you remove the connection that was previously there to the outflows that you had as part of the trauma. So it can be a permanent removal of the encoding related to that traumatic experience. That doesn't mean that you've blocked your ability to go into fight or flight, because you still have this receptor, and if you're scared again, that will then come back to the surface, and whatever that new experience is, it will get plugged on with the new, whatever the new outflows tend to be, whether that's running away or freezing or whatever. So it's incredibly powerful, and it's incredibly simple, because we're tapping into something that we can all pretty much do, which is use the power of human touch. And if you don't have the limbs in order to do it, somebody can do it on you if you're permissive to allow that to happen. And kids can do it on animals. They can do it, we have the animal therapy, which is very good for kids. In essence, they're tapping into into the power of human touch, because they're using human touch on other animals to self-regulate themselves. And you can do it on soft toys, and obviously do it on yourself. So it's a really powerful tool. And the great thing about it as well, I mean, there are other techniques that leverage the power of the calming delta waves that are generated with havening, such as EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and that's a very well-known therapy to help people with major trauma, PTSD, and so on. But the great thing about it is you don't have to say anything. So you'll recall the experience, the traumatic experience with the therapist, such as myself, and with your practitioner, and it's specific. So you're only recalling that specific experience, and because you're recalling it in your mind, you don't have to say anything about it. You just have to momentarily bring it to the foreground of your mind, and then you let the power of human touch do its work, and you do it for until such point as the trauma has been removed. And there's many different ways in which we can help people with that release of the trauma. And the great thing is you can do it on your kids too. So I did it first with I came across it through the Omen clinics, mentioned it, who I work with, and my dad passed away suddenly, and I unfortunately witnessed his death, and it was a really traumatic experience for me. And I reached out to get some support with havening, hadn't a clue what it was, didn't know if it would work, had positive psychotherapy before, that didn't work for me, talk therapy wasn't my thing. But within an hour, I went from a distress rating of 7 out of 10 to 2 out of 10. And within a week, I could talk about the experience of my dad's death without having a total meltdown. And since training as a practitioner, I've helped people with PTSD get rid of the flashbacks that they've had that no other therapy's been able to do for them, help people with all sorts of adverse childhood experiences. And I taught my daughter to do it. So Lily learned this technique at 18 months. I did it on my daughter because she had traumatic birthing experience. So she had nightmares from birth. And she was not sleeping through the night very well from birth. And when I applied calming touch to her and talked to her in calming ways while she was experiencing these nightmares, they went away. So it removed her nightmares very quickly. And so we developed a course. So Lily went to her first international conference last year at age 2 to demonstrate havening to nursery rhymes. So we now have an online course for parents and children to teach parents to teach themselves. So put the oxygen mask on first before you help others. So to learn how to reduce day-to-day stress and anxiety with it, it's really powerful. You can do it while you're driving with one hand if you're getting irate whilst you're driving. And then also to teach your kids, which you can do through the power of nursery rhymes, or they can listen to their favourite music collection and so on, to calm them down. And I use it with kids now who have had trauma, and maybe they don't want to talk about it, but they want to get some emotional release from it as well.
You know why? That's got a light bulb in my head. I work with, I run a nonprofit called Kids of Hope for foster children. And I was like, that's what they need.
Yeah.
Because foster children are traumatized, like from birth.
Horrendously traumatized.
Whatever age they are in, it doesn't matter. And often they get re-traumatized in the foster care system, at least in the US. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but
I can't speak on behalf of the UK system. Certainly that from people that I know have worked in there, it's really traumatic for children because of just the way the system works.
So, and what the nonprofit does is we have 2 arms. So one arm is we give curated items to the kids that help with social emotional development. So toys that are specifically geared towards that, because
Yeah.
we're dealing with 0 to 5 first, then we're gonna go to the other groups, and then like books that deal with that specifically, or just, and then also information for the foster parents as well, to talk like things about milestones, that when to talk to the doctor, because often in my experience, they just come into the clinic and they say everything's fine. And then this kid is not really fine because they don't really know what to ask or talk about.
And they can't talk about it.
Exactly. And then information on brain health for the foster parents themselves. So that's what we're doing. But then I also do training for the child welfare workers and foster parents as well on brain health. So I was just thinking, wow, if there was a way to include the whole touch therapy in there that the kids can do on themselves, because asking foster parents to do it on the kids may not necessarily
Might
be
not
the right way
work.
to go. But if kids themselves can do it, even maybe the 4 or the 5-year-olds, if there was a way to simplify it enough for them to include it in there, so that, because we also include a teddy bear in there, even with their furry animals, if they.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have a very simple course for parents and kids, so they can learn, they can watch the Havening video with Lilly. Sometimes kids need kids, don't they, to follow suit, and that's why I did it, because it Lilly inspired other children to do it. So getting her to be recorded was really important to reach as many children as possible.
Okay, we're gonna have to talk about this offline. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's so important. It ought to be part of education. We talk about a lot of mindfulness techniques, deep breathing. Lilly likes yoga, we practice deep breathing, we do namaste and stuff like that. That's all really important. And learning, the power of human touch to calm yourself down by self-calming, it is really needed, especially for children who have been traumatized. Because it's not, you need a professional to help you really unchain your pain of the trauma that you experienced. But sometimes it's difficult to tap into that when the children are so young. So you have to equip them with stuff that they can get through each day with. Because they don't have that cognitive development to know how to do it.
And they may not even have the access. Yes, and they may also not have the access to the therapist to do it.
Exactly. So the more we can help children be self-sufficient in a positive way, and know how to manage their mind, which is really important, that the better future they will have.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Wow. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Wow, this has been so good. I think we've been talking for how long now?
47 minutes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, great. So please tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you. We're gonna have to have you on again. This was so good.
No, I'd love to come back. So wellbeingwarrioracademy.com is one way. That's the academy that's really specifically set up to help adults and children unchain, unlock and unleash their full potential and take charge of their well-being and really be the boss of their well-being. And then ruthmaryallen.com, or just email me, support@ruthmaryallen.com. Totally fine. You can find me on any social media platform, Ruth Mary Allen. But yeah, do connect with me on any of those websites, and we do a 50-minute consultation if you want something specific for you. And then obviously we have programs as well for kids. We do Wellbeing Warrior programs for kids, working through the belt system.
Yes.
and havening as well.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, parents, please take advantage, and we'll have all the information for you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to come spend time with us. So
oh no, you're most welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real blast.
Yes, for sure. So until the next episode of Brain Power TV, parents, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week ahead. And remember to take care of yourself first so that you can take care of the children that you love and care for. Thank you.